Have I indeed walked over to the BJP camp? What do you think? Welcome, greetings, vanakkam, namaskaram, suprabhat. I've been more than rendered curious by the many responses I received to the video shared with you yesterday, rather day before yesterday, suggesting that Shri Narendra Modi has proved his cynics wrong by being more sincere about his meditation experience at the Vivekananda Memorial Rock in Kanyakumari. Another response wondered if I'm singing a different tune because I've been intimidated and I'm changing my views for fear of my life. A few of my friends are genuinely shocked that I could come up and come out with such stupid observations. First of all, let me say that I respect all of these views and responses. Truth to tell, for me, it is not the specific orientation of a response that matters. It is response per se that matters. Provided the response is civilized and not insane or boorish. I must now reveal the reason why it is so, because it might sound somewhat strange and curious. I developed the contents of the various videos I share with you not to form and impose a particular view on any one of you. I'm not here on a proselytizing mission. I've been a teacher lifelong, and I would like to stay a teacher till my last breath. And I've always believed that the most basic task of a teacher is to promote a culture of thinking and thinking rationally, objectively, and humanely. The reason for this also must be stated. I believe that thinking holds the secret of human freedom. If you don't think, if you don't develop your capacity to think, you will remain a slave till the end of your life, even if there are no manacles on your wrists. And this form of slavery, due to the deliberate embracement of intellectual underdevelopment, is to be most regretted, if only for the reason that it is the most universal form of bondage or unfreedom at the present time. When you don't develop your capacity to think for yourself, you will succumb to the temptation to align yourself with this camp or that camp, and you end up by simply parroting the views of others. If others have the right to think for themselves, and if others can think for themselves, why not you? After all, you're also a human being. I'm also a human being. So I believe that the goal of education is to enable people to become human. And I also believe that the core principle or the core strength of being human is developing the capacity to think for oneself, as against the predominant tendency today of aligning oneself to a particular camp and then lapping up whatever that camp puts in circulation and then parroting them to the rest of the world as though these views are your own original inventions. There we are not being honest with ourselves and we are not being fair to ourselves. Now, let me be more specific. In that video, I said that given the extreme sobriety that was strikingly visible about how Sri Narendra Modi conducted himself during the while he was in meditation. And even more particularly thereafter, going by the comparatively diminished interest that he has been showing in domestic politics, preferring to spend most of the time overseas visiting various countries, apparently trying to see if he can intervene on behalf of establishing peace in war-torn areas like Ukraine and Russia. I said that maybe the experience of meditating, particularly in the ambience of the memory of one of India's greatest sons, Swami Vivekananda, could have had a transforming effect. But then I also provided a cue or a clue towards the end of that video, if you remember. I said, I'll wait and see if from this early signs of transformation, the Prime Minister or Sri Narendra Modi would go on and truly grow in his spiritual vision and become a spiritual leader for India. And then I went to the extreme step of saying that if he does, I'd have absolutely no hesitation in renouncing everything and attaching myself to his spiritual mission if I'm indeed convinced that his spiritual mission is genuine and truly spiritual. Now, why did I do that video? Why have I done nearly 1600 videos? All of these videos have just one common denominator, and that is, as I said a short while ago, to provoke my friends, all of you, to think. Now, how does thinking take place? This is very interesting to know. Probably vast majority of you are aware of this, but in case there is anyone in our midst who is a little unclear about this, let me state this for their benefit. Thinking is always provoked by confronting or becoming aware of something contrary to what one actually holds or believes. Now, suppose you believe that paper is white. And I keep saying all paper manufactured anywhere in the world is white. It's only a simple fact and it doesn't provoke any thinking. Suppose I say that there is no paper manufactured anywhere in the world which is white in color. Immediately something will wake up within, because it goes contrary to your experience, because most of the time in your life so far, you have experienced paper which is white in color. You have also experienced paper which is of different colors, but mostly it's white colored paper that you have handled. So when I make a statement as simple as paper is never white in color, it's always red or yellow or blue or indigo or purple or whatever, then suddenly something wakes up, because I have disturbed your assumption. And then what you do is you begin to think, you begin to examine facts, and then you also try to understand or find out if there is any basis on which I have made that statement. That is, if you're interested in thinking at all. Otherwise, you can simply say that this old man has lost his balance, poor fellow, he has lost it. Then, of course, no thinking happens. But suppose you want to think, then what you do is you try to find out, now, what is the basis on which he has now come out with the statement. That's how thinking starts. Or to take another example, suppose you're driving on the highway. Your car is moving smoothly, and you never think of the road surface. Suddenly your car hits a pothole, and suddenly there is a bump, and you begin to think of the road. That's how thinking happens. So you must understand that in developing the contents of the videos I share with you, I will insert deliberately from time to time observations, suggestions, proddings, meant to provoke you, meant to give the experience of hitting the pothole, as it were, when you are sailing smoothly, a little bit of rough weather, as it were. So that is uh, not to be taken as a statement of my absolute belief. My belief may not be, what I believe may not be as important as this process of our thinking together. Now, let me say something more specific about Sri Narendra Modi's meditation and what I said there. Now, if anyone would believe, if anyone would believe that I really did think of Sri Narendra Modi's meditation as a sincere experience, I'm afraid that person has not understood my idea of religion. Though I have made repeated revelations in the last 1.5 years regarding where I stand in relation to religion. One of the things I've stated repeatedly, and deliberately is that religion is a sphere of hypocrisy. Please remember, there is no religion, there is no religious practice which is free of hypocrisy. I make a clear distinction between the spiritual core of a religious tradition and the religious practices presided over by or sponsored by its priestly class. The spiritual core of a religion, every religion, is full of light. And the light here means the universal values like truth, love, justice, peace, compassion, caring for others, sense of fellow humanity, etc. There is no blemish, there is no darkness, there is no hypocrisy there. It's totally free from hypocrisy. But when this spiritual core is taken up by human beings and organized and elaborated in the form of an established religion, everything goes wrong. In fact, the religious light, the spiritual light turns into religious darkness. Truth becomes falsehood. Love becomes hatred. Justice becomes injustice. Compassion becomes cruelty. That's the history of religions I have learned. I don't know how you have seen it. Every religion, the degree to which a religion resorts to this practice may vary from one religion to another. But every religion, in the course of its march through history, has resorted to violence. Violence always presupposes untruth. You cannot be committed to truth and practice violence, and that's what Gandhiji has taught us. He said that the essence of ahimsa is commitment to truth. If you renounce truth, you will embrace falsehood, and the authentic expression of falsehood is violence. That's the reason why the outbreak of every communal atrocity is preceded by intense propaganda, and the function of propaganda is to dole out or dish out untruths to people as though that's the truth. So there is a necessary and inevitable connection between untruth and violence. And therefore, if peace is to be established, there must be a shared commitment to truth. After all, in this country, we have been praying for centuries. From untruth, lead us to truth. We pray like that, but we do not want to move in that direction. And that's another issue. That's another aspect of the hypocrisy that prevails in the sphere of religion. Even in our prayers, we are hypocritical because we may pray, lead us from untruth to truth, from darkness to light, from death to life immortal. But this prayer is not sincere because we never move in that direction. So every aspect of the practice of religion is soaked in hypocrisy. So when anyone particularly displays a religious practice, a public display of piety, religiosity, or fervor for God, or spiritual posturing, my immediate conclusion would be this is a piece of hypocrisy, and hypocrisy simply literally means play acting, And every instance of play acting means that there is a hidden motive which is quite contrary to the motives that are legitimate within a spiritual vision of life. So, the motive hidden behind every hypocritical practice is selfishness, either of the individual or of the group to which one belongs. So, when anyone comes out into the public domain to make a display of his or her religiosity, religious discipline, etc., never mind which religion that person professes or practices, my first conclusion is that here is a theater of hypocrisy. I repeat, here is a theater of hypocrisy. And the second step of the thinking would be that hypocrisy has no power to bring about any change in anyone's nature, character, behavior, or outlook. Just as a person may act as a saint in a drama, but once the theater is the acting in the theater is over, that person returns to life, he may be a crook. There's no contradiction there because he was only acting. The actor who acts perfectly the role of a saint in a play in the theater feels absolutely no contradiction or no touch of hypocrisy when he returns to life and behaves like a crook. And that's exactly what happens in religion and politics. So, if Narendra Modi has brought his religious equipment into the public domain in the full glare of the media, etc., etc., I'm sure you don't believe me. You don't expect me to believe that there was a sincere experience. Just as I don't believe that a bishop or an archbishop or a cardinal or a priest in the Christian tradition, when he comes out in public view with all his religious paraphernalia, looking very pious, holier than thou, has the slightest element of sincerity, is as much in the theater of hypocrisy as anyone in the political domain is who is acting religious fervor in order to influence people to garner votes. A priest is acting piety in order to influence people so as to persuade them to remain loyal to the establishment he represents, as well as to donate more and more generously to the establishment, which enables then the priestly class to maintain a certain lifestyle and to have great deal of influence in the secular society, including the legal system as well as the secular administration. A great deal of money is used. This is what Christians don't realize. A great deal of money is used by the church in order to win the goodwill of those in powerful offices. But all these exercises are done in a covert manner behind the scene as public relations exercises, because if these exercises are not undertaken and people in power are not kept well humored, the church authorities could get into serious trouble because inside the system everything is rotting. There is a complete disconnect between this kind of highly purified piety that is acted out in great and visible fervor in the public domain and how things are managed behind the curtain. It's a shocking reality. Unfortunately, I've had to see it umpteen times. So this is something that I thought we would discuss as an aftermath. Now, the third point I want to make is this. Do we have, as Indians, any right whatsoever to be shocked or surprised or feel indignant that Sri Narendra Modi chose to act out this meditational piety, the spiritual fervor, this total oneness of spirit with Swami Vivekananda in the context of an ongoing elections, clearly meant to have an electoral outcome out of it, which is quite different from pure meditation, which is an attempt to liberate the world from selfish or partisan earthly expectations, mercenary interests, so on and so forth. Do we have any right to feel indignant about it? I tell you we don't. Let me tell you why. As Indians, we have quite happily accepted that post-truth politics is the norm. I haven't come across any significant voice in the last 25 years in the public life of India protesting against the complete ascendancy of post-truth politics. What is post-truth politics? Politics that completely renounces the need to be committed to truth in the practice of politics. That is post-truth politics. We have accepted it without any protest. We have simply accepted it as a fait accompli. We have no conscience problem with it. We have no philosophical or ethical or religious problem with it. Having accepted that, what right do we have to say that Prime Minister Narendra Modi should be 100% committed to truth when he goes to the Vivekananda Memorial Rock to meditate? Why should meditation undertaken by a political leader in the clearly defined context of post-truth politics be truthful? Wouldn't Sri Narendra Modi be contradicting the very essence of the politics that we as Indians expect him to practice? Not merely the BJP camp. Every political party in India has accepted that we are very happily into this phase, in this epoch, in this age of post-truth politics. Having accepted that, how can you feel indignant that somebody undertakes a meditation in full public view in order to influence the electorate in a certain manner? And it must be a completely truthful experience? It's absurd to the core. In fact, a political leader who undertakes a hypocritical exercise of undertaking a meditation in full public view with the ulterior motive and mercenary interest of squeezing some political and electoral benefit out of it is morally more superior to the citizen who expects politicians to be honest, having already accepted post-truth politics as the norm. Now, for example, suppose we create a society, say a society of 1,000 people. They are living isolated from the rest of the society, an island of 1,000 people, where the norm is speaking lies, falsehood. Now, do you think members of that society living in that island where speaking falsehood is a norm have any right to expect the leaders, a leader or leaders that they have chosen, to always tell the truth? Now, he will be a contradiction. He will be an eyesore. He will be a square peg in a round hole. The same principle, the same pattern applies here. So, either you accept post-truth politics and thereafter also accept the consequences that go with it, namely that no political leader should be held to account for any play-acting hypocrisy or falsehood he wants to thrust on the citizens of India. Or you say that we must now return to principled politics, politics that Politics, the practice of which will be guided by adherence to certain universal values like justice, truth, compassion, accountability, so on and so forth. And having accepted that, expect the leaders also to be sincere in whatever they are projecting in the public domain. You can't willfully choose post-truth politics and at the same time say leaders must be truthful. This is absurdity of the highest order. The same pattern exists in religion. The very same pattern exists in religion. Everything that you see in the religious domain is play acting, is hypocritical. It is for this reason that Jesus of Nazareth associated the priestly class of his days, in fact, the priestly class of all times, both past, present, and future. There will be no exception to this rule. He associated the priestly class with hypocrisy, nothing else. He never expected an iota of truth or sincerity or honesty or commitment to justice, compassion, love, etc. from the priestly class. So, the piety that is acted out in the public domain is clearly meant to be a piece of theater. Let me ask you a simple question. And I am asking this question only with my fellow Christians. Others are allowed to overhear, but I am not asking them this question. Christians believe that unless their priests are attired in a particular manner, what's called the priestly vestments, they cannot be full-fledged servants of God. If a Christian sees a priest in ordinary clothes conducting a Sunday worship, he'll be shocked. He may faint. If a Christian sees a bishop in normal clothes like what we wear, he'll be shocked. Let me ask you, is it necessary to be clad or attired in a particular fashion to tell the truth, to be more loving, to be just, to be kind, to be caring, to be human? And what is all this for? I've been a priest. I can tell you that the vestments I wore had absolutely nothing to do with my sincerity as a human being, my commitment to godly values. It was meant only to have a particular effect on whoever saw me. Certainly not an effect on God, because after all, God knows the truth. As the Bible itself says, God seeks only the truth of the inward life or inward parts, as Psalm 51 says. So clearly this is not meant for, the priestly attire is not meant for the consumption of God. It's meant to impress the people, just as actors in a theatre put on various costumes in order to impress the people that they are this, they are that, which they are not. A costume is worn, vestments are worn by those who do so in order to persuade those who see them to believe that they are what they are not. So it is nothing but textile hypocrisy. That's how I describe it. It is nothing but textile hypocrisy. So we see a beautiful parallel here. In the political domain, there is post-truth politics. In the religious domain, there is hypocritical piety. Both converge on one thing, that's money. Understand the pattern. Post-truth politics, hypocritical religion meet in a common ground that's called money. It's only money that matters. Remove money from politics, nobody would want to be a minister or a prime minister. Remove money from religion, nobody want to be a priest or a bishop or an archbishop or a pope. 100%. That's why Jesus said you should never bring money into your relationship with God, because the moment money comes into the picture or anything, everything gets corrupted. And hypocrisy is a necessary outcome, inevitable outcome of mixing up anything whatsoever with mercenary interests. So I come back to the point at which I started. As a general rule, let me state it once again. Please do not see or accept the contents that I share with you through the many videos from day to day as my stated, final, crystallized, absolute position. Now and then, of course, I'll speak out of my convictions, but there are many occasions, there will continue to be many occasions, when I will introduce thought elements which are meant to provoke all of us, including myself, into thinking. And as I said at the outset, thinking is catalyzed, provoked, or initiated, or awakened, if you like, by the introduction of something which is shocking, which runs counter to what we have always believed. That is the reason why we must always be open to views that are contrary to our views. Unfortunately, if you and I are religiously conditioned, we'll become so weak in this respect that the capacity to listen to a person who differs to us in his views or her views with respect will be totally destroyed in us. Because every religion is constructed on the foundation of absolute and slavish conformity, which rules out the patience, the willingness to listen to another person's perspective with respect, which is a basic courtesy that we need to extend to others. But this doesn't mean that there should not be a distinction between dissent and abuse. And I don't believe that it's my duty to encourage anyone to indulge in public abuses, because it's bad for that person. It's important for me to tell somebody when that person is degenerating into mindless, uncivilized abuse that you're doing disservice to yourself, and also to protect that person from public view. And therefore, I tend to delete responses that are purely abusive, because it shows that person in a poor light. It can do no harm to me, absolutely no harm to me. I am what I am. I have no pretensions to infallibility. I am not a pope. I have no pretensions to a philosopher. I'm just an ordinary human being, but someone who insists on understanding things as clearly, sincerely, objectively as I can, without belonging to any camp whatsoever. Though members of various camps would find it difficult to believe that I am non-partisan, because everybody wants me to say what they like me to say. Therefore, actually, all camps believe or look at me with a certain degree of suspicion, which is good enough proof that I don't belong to any particular camp. But if I see something good in X, Y, or Z, I'll be quite forthright and voluble in expressing it. For example, the reason I have made many positive comments about Rahul Gandhi is that I see in him an attempt to develop a model of politics which is contrary to this post-truth politics. That's why he talks about politics of love as against politics of hate, politics of truth as against politics of falsehood, politics of tolerance as against politics of intolerance, politics of caring for the poor as against politics of crony capitalism. So it is not my appreciation for an individual. It is my commitment to a political paradigm that makes me share some of these views with you. Of course, I don't expect members of the BJP or Sangh Parivar camp to understand my position with any degree of charity or commitment to truth. Bias is bias and it makes people blind, and I'm quite happy to accept the consequences. But again, so I thought this much clarification I owed to everyone. I think I've discharged my duty, and I must apologize for not having been able to comment on whatever happened in the last 1 week. I was out of station, I was traveling. So and I'm traveling, obviously. I'm not able to keep in touch with all the developments. I don't have my equipment to make videos. But before I left Trivandrum, I made several videos and scheduled them so that not a single day passes without at least 2 videos being available to the members of this YouTube fellowship. So to that extent, I have not allowed a discontinuity to happen. I have returned, but I've returned with a little bit of infection, which I always pick up when I travel by train, because as you know, the trains that run in Kerala are specially made for Kerala, especially meant for Kerala. They cannot be used anywhere else. Absolutely condemned compartments, except for these more prestigious trains that go to Delhi, etc., or Vande Bharat. Last night I travelled by Shatabdi, Calicut Trivandrum Shatabdi. That compartment was so dirty. The inside was so dark. I felt as though I was sitting inside the tunnel of a coal mine. Just that dirty. I don't think compartments like this can be used in any other state. Kerala suffers the worst form of neglect as far as the central government is concerned, which is very unfortunate, and I am shocked, I am disappointed that Kerala politicians are least mindful of any of these things. They are on to something else. Look at the issues that engage Kerala political discussions. It's a shame, it's an absolute shame. Anyway, that's not my theme at the moment. So I'm back in Trivandrum, but if I do not succeed in remaining as active as I would like to be for the next few days, it would only be because I picked up a little bit of infection. It's very mild at this point in time. I could well recover before the day is up, but if I don't, please forgive me, and I wish all of you a very good day. Thank you. Jai Hind.